Hello, ladies and gentlemen. It is currently February 11th, 2010, if you live in the California time zone. And this is Day9 Daily number 67. Oh my god, I'm super excited, because we're taking a break from the usual thing of analyzing that old game Starcraft to do Starcraft II. Always gotta do a few tries on the Thug Snap because I'm so pumped today. So the whole point of this is that I don't really think anyone's done any big analysis videos of StarCraft II. So the point is, here we're going to look at one of the battle reports. It's going to be BattleReport 2. And we're going to talk about it from the StarCraft player, from the StarCraft 1 player's perspective, the sorts of things that we learned back then, how they come into use. And I just want to say a little bit about myself, because I know many of you may be checking this out for the first time ever. This is my little Day9 daily thing. I do 5 days a week of StarCraft analysis and the like. And of course, now it's going to be StarCraft 2 analysis and the like. Normally, I come hang out with my good friend, Hot Green Tea. We're just going to go ahead and analyze a match. And I've been playing StarCraft for about 12 years now, so I'm not a computer nerd, I'm a computer jock. Been a big competitive player for a long time. And I just wanted to spend a little bit of time talking about StarCraft II, this battle report here. And one thing I think is pretty important to note is that I actually know pretty much nothing about StarCraft II. I mean, I went to BlizzCon, but when I got into the StarCraft II line and sat at the computers, all I did was read the tech trees for the various races and then lost with like 8,000 minerals because I didn't build anything. And, I mean, I don't really read the forums. I don't really read stuff about the balance, people debating the design and that sort of thing. Because, I mean, there's a lot of people who have been discussing, ooh, this is imbalanced, I'm worried about this and that. And this is what I want everyone to do. Remove your little design hats. Stop thinking about what would be good or bad or what Blizzard's doing right or wrong. Instead, just think about, how do I win at this game? Because now Blizzard's going to be setting everything in stone. It's important that we don't obsess about, oh, what could things be? And instead, just figure out how to snap some nerds' necks in the most entertaining ways possible. So this is the map that we're looking at today. It's Blistering Sands. So there's a few things that I want to look at right away. The first one is, looks like we have this neutral building blocking these mineral patches right here. It looks like they've been taking some lessons from the good old Korean map makers. One thing I think is most interesting is that we have this backdoor entrance that we can kill off to enter the base, and it's not just that it's at the back door right here, but that if I kill my back door and your back door, I have a really short walk distance like this. That is super fast. And I think what a lot of players should end up doing is once they've moved out into this area and they have control of this, they should kill off this building right here and rally troops in, especially if they're the more mobile race. So now I want to talk about a concept called map control that I think everyone knows. It's the idea of which player in the game can wander into the middle of the map without any real worry. StarCraft 1 example. The Zerg player gets lurkers, burrows them at the Terran front. The Terran needs to get science vessels before he can take those lurkers out. So the Terran player has to hold back. The Zerg player now has map control, can move around freely. So what can the player with map control exploit? In particular, I'm seeing this back expansion right here. If the Zerg player, again, let's pretend we're in StarCraft 1 land, the Zerg player would be able to get map control early, contain this sort of region, and be able to kill off this expansion right here. The Terran player, on the other hand, it would be a lot harder to take this expansion. So for the more immobile races, this expansion is less juicy of a prospect than it would be for, you know, Zerg or Protoss, the races in StarCraft 1 that have a little bit more map control. So I think that's a pretty fundamental thing to consider right off the bat. Where do I want to be expanding as my third base? Because Blizzard is making an effort now to be really good about having maps have naturals and all the sort of mechanics we're used to for map design and that sort of thing. And this is a little bit newer of an idea. Occasionally we have these blocks, but not with such a thick building, not with something with so many hit points. So I think that's a real interesting thing to note. Also, these Xel'Naga watchtowers, these are useful, but part of me, and I haven't actually watched the battle report all the way through, so again, pure speculation, pure just application of what I know onto this map. These feel like in other maps might be super useful, but might be a little bit less useful on this map, just because this area is so heavily constricted. I have an image of a player who's, you know, pushing along this way and gets to here and starts to move across. If he has vision of here, it might help him to know whether he should be attacking above or below, but only if he's super, super mobile. A Terran player really is going to be committing to a push along this lane or a push down here on this bottom lane. So I think that these sorts of things are going to be super useful early game, perhaps will be slightly less useful in the late game. Again, if you do any sort of early aggression, these things are going to be really useful. So let's not spend too much time analyzing the map and overly theorizing jank. Let's go ahead and jump right in. I'm going to turn it down a little bit, because normally if I'm doing doing an overlay of a Korean video. It's pretty easy just to tune out the Korean, but you have me talking over Dustin Browder and Robert Simpson, who are really good commentators, so I don't really want to battle for them. But fortunately, they are YouTube and I'm not, so muting it up. And little things like this. It doesn't really bother me so much that wasn't a perfect split. I mean, if this were me playing, watching one of my own replays, I would have been like, oh, I didn't split absolutely perfectly. Oh, Jesus, I'm the worst player in the universe. But, it's just a battle report, just to sort of show off some features. No big deal. This is one thing that I'm a little curious about, that I would do a lot of testing on. The fact that this Overlord here has a shadow right there. Does this mean that an air unit up here corresponds to this piece of ground? So does that mean if something is right here, that it is within range 1 of this unit, and something right here is that far away from the unit? And the reason I'm thinking about this elevation and distance is that in StarCraft 1, if anything is in the air or on the ground or on a cliff or on a low ground, it's the same distances, And when you look at the maps, like right here, this overhang, I'm real curious how far a tank can shoot from up here or from up here. So that would be something that I would actually test a lot to see if there are key places that I can abuse or exploit or something like that. And of course, they're just doing the usual thing, pointing out the fact that, there is in fact an expansion here, talking about what a natural expansion is, no doubt appealing to people who have never really considered the competitive aspects of StarCraft, which of course, any nerd who's tuned in right now, be proud of the fact that we're big competitive StarCraft players. This bottom right expansion also, I think, is a little bit less juicy than you might think. I mean, yeah, it's these special yellow mineral patches, which I think do something nice and fancy, but it has 2 ramp entrances. And I've actually been dabbling around with a handful of other some other strategy games as of late. And having multiple entrances to some place, even if they're both really small, is a big pain in the ass in terms of defending. Like, way bigger than you might imagine. I mean, the map I'm thinking of right now is Match Point. The fact that the bottom right and top left expansions have those 2 entrances, it just, ruins everything. And everything continuing to go seemingly normal. Now, here's a question I have. Why is this Terran player expanding so early? This is something I spend quite a bit of time discussing in just the usual Day9 dailies. Is the scout time that you are doing just because of an impulse, just because, I wanted to scout? Or is it because you're trying to stop something or see something in advance? As we see right here, this is pretty damn good scout timing, right? We're getting the SCV there right when we think the drone's going to try to expand so we can block it. But that's a classic mistake that StarCraft 1 players will make, and actually players of any strategy game make. They scout purely for some sort of imaginary fear over what their opponent can do. The way you should scout is you should say, what problem have I been having with my build, and will scouting help that? That's why we see Protoss players scouting super early against Zerg players in StarCraft 1, so that way they can spot 9 pools or early expands or that big deviation. But against other Protoss players and against other Terrans, Protoss generally scout a little bit later because it's not absolutely critical to do that sort of checking out stuff early on. And we see him doing the good old manner action with the SCV, blocking stuff down. I'm kind of into these little lines denoting rally points, this sort of production station. Nice features. But alas, I am not here to focus on the features. I'm here to focus on how everyone who's watching this stream can crush everyone's faces when the StarCraft II beta comes out. And I sincerely hope all you're in the beta. And if you're not, you can watch me stream my games on this same channel right here. So we do see a bunker rush going down. One thing that I should mention right now, bunker rushes are a pretty significant commitment by an opponent in StarCraft 1, and I would imagine as much in StarCraft 2. A lot of people just seem to think that if the bunker gets done and does any shooting at all, that somehow the Zerg player is at an unbelievable loss, and I think that's a bit of a mistake. It's understandable from a psychological standpoint. Oh my god, my opponent got in my face early, and I couldn't stop him from getting in my face for a little bit. Therefore, I must somehow be at a disadvantage, especially when you're put on the defensive. But I don't think that's necessarily true. I think it's important in a strategy game to remain calm in a situation like this. Not just for defending it, but we're going to see it's going to do a little bit of damage, because I did watch the start of this before I stopped and said, let's do it on the stream. So I want to talk a little bit about that as we see it. So in terms of the evolution of strategy, let's say this Zerg player lost to this bunker rush. Let's see, this thing right here caused him to lose the game. I noted that only 2 drones came down to defend that, and in StarCraft 1 we've seen bunker rushes held